That was something I did it in high school after I hit a game winner, and leading up to this game, I know where we are. I know it's a bunch of shows around this city, and I know what they do when the show is over. So that's pretty much what it was. So I feel like I've worked my whole life for this moment and to play in the playoffs and the biggest stage. I put in a lot of work, and a lot of the guys who haven't been here have done the same, and it feels good. I mean, it feels good to win it, to win this series, and now we get to focus on the second round.
I mean, Trae Young deserved to take a bow. When you are one of 2 visiting players in NBA history with 3 straight 30-point playoff games at Madison Square Garden, and the other is Michael Jordan, that's right, take a bow, my friend. You earned it, especially how Knicks fans went at you. And then the Hawks, they had this saved in drafts. The moment they drew the Knicks in the first round, the good old Homer Simpson meme, with Knicks fans retreating into the bushes and emerging as Nets fans. And we know it's ridiculous. Ashley Nicole Moss must be fuming right now, not only having to listen to Trae Young, but see that meme, because we know that would never happen, that no self-respecting Knicks fan would ever cross over to the Nets. But you gotta admit, it was funny. You gotta admit it's funny. Ashley, y'all had it coming.
Ashley, I've never seen you look this mad, Ashley. What's going on? What's up?
I'm not amused. I am not amused, guys. I'm not amused. It's not been a fun 24 hours on this end of the phone, I'll tell you that much. Look, we put up a good fight. And, I think I was having this conversation earlier with someone. I think it weighs more on your spirit when you don't see it coming, right? When you're out there and you're competing and the games are close and you think you really have a chance. After game 3, I think Knicks fans saw the writing on the wall. It wasn't a surprise. Obviously, you don't want it to end at home. I was confident that we were at least going to win game 5 and lose in Atlanta. That's what I was hoping, just because it's a different type of feeling when you get blown out at home than it is when you're on the road. But I think that this Knicks team has just surpassed the expectations of not only the fan base, but of the media. Nobody had them winning this many games. Nobody even had them in the playoffs. So as a fan base, you find happiness in that, and you're hopeful for the future. I mean, if this team looks the way it looks with so many pieces missing and so many voids that have to be filled, imagine when you get that superstar. Imagine when you get more shooters, and with the foundation you've already built with Coach Tibbs, with the front office, Worldwide West and Leon Rose and everybody. I mean, this is going to be a franchise that's going to be relevant. And if you guys were sick of the New York Knicks and their fan base this season, just get ready, because we're here. We're not going nowhere. We're just getting started. It's okay, Trae. We'll see you again, baby. Don't worry about it.
That's what I wanted to see. That's what I wanted to see. But wait, I gotta follow up on something, because it's funny. Michael and I had this conversation, I think, since the last time you were on. Because I don't think you've come on since the series started. Sorry, my memory escapes me. Because, when the Knicks won
game 1
since the series has started.
So, yeah.
Not concerned. Okay, but then when they won,
they win game 2.
Okay, but then when they won, okay, thank you. That's right. Then when they won, and there was the videos of Knicks fans like dancing in the streets and celebrating as if they had won a championship. Michael and I had a back and forth. Like, I got where the emotion was coming from. I got where the joy was coming from, because you guys had waited, relatively speaking, a long time to play meaningful basketball this time of year. Michael, you were like, what? That's not the New York I grew up on. That's not right. New Yorkers. It's like, if they first, you last. It's like, what's happening to y'all? So what would you say to that?
The New York Knicks celebrating a win in game 2 of a series. One win. Come on. Hey, celebrate.
It was a long time coming. 2013.
Look at my man in the white shirt up there.
Long time. I don't think people realize, and the Knicks
actually couldn't drive in 2013.
Yes, I could. I could drive in 2013. I did the math. I definitely could drive.
You had to think about it.
I had to think about it. I could drive in 2013. Listen, Knicks fans, I think people, they clown the New York Knicks as a franchise and they clown them as a fan base. Only New York fans are Knicks fans. They don't have any fans outside of New York, and that may be true. But this fan base is so loyal and eats, breathes, sleeps the New York Knicks. I mean, there are people with New York Knicks bedding, pajamas, toothbrushes. I mean, this is a fandom to a different degree, a different tier of fandom that I don't think most fans are accustomed to seeing. You don't get that in Brooklyn. You don't get that in Atlanta. You don't get that in Miami. It's a different type of fandom in New York. The New York Knicks are everything to so many people. And the Garden is like going to church. It is a spiritual experience for people. So to have a win in the first win in 8 years, it's a big deal.
Why Spike threw up the Baptist finger then when he snuck out at the end?
I'm mad with Spike. Spike and I have to have a conversation because he committed the cardinal sin. You never leave the arena, especially not the Garden with 3 minutes on the clock. That is blasphemy. That is a cardinal sin of Madison Square Garden, of the New York Knicks, and he should know better. He's an OG, and him and I need to have a conversation. Do the right thing, Spike. Do the right thing. That was not it.
Do the right thing. Well played. Well played.
That's great.
Well played.
That's great.
I was mad.
All right. So Ashley.
So
all right.
I
need you to help out Tibbs, help out Worldwide West and Leon Rose. I'm going to deputize you as general manager of the New York Knicks. All right, obviously LeBron's not available and Durant's not available. Give me a star though. Give me a star that you could insert there. Who would make sense to take the Knicks to the next level? Just add somebody to that team. Because I have somebody in mind. Who do you think?
2 words. Kawhi Leonard.
Why?
Okay.
Kawhi Leonard.
Okay.
Listen, Kawhi Leonard.
So we know who you're rooting for.
Kawhi Leonard.
So you're a Mavericks fan now.
No, Porzingis is on the Mavericks, so I'm not gonna go there.
But that's right.
Kawhi Leonard, I think, is the perfect superstar to put into this equation for multiple reasons. I mean, he is a scorer. I think also he has extreme success in the postseason, as we're seeing. He's not the most vocal guy, but you already have that with the personalities on the Knicks. You have it in Derrick Rose, you have it in Taj Gibson, you have it in Julius Randle. Those guys aren't afraid to kind of speak up. I think that will work well with Kawhi's personality, which tends to be, the nice guy role. He's very laid back. I just think you need talent of that magnitude to really push this franchise to the next level. I think also, people were saying, well, Tibbs is not going to let him load manage in New York. He doesn't play that. That might be an issue, but I think also with Kawhi on the court, you don't have to maybe push him as hard as you do in other scenarios because you still are going to have to get multiple pieces around him. It's not just all about Kawhi. I think Julius Randle is your C option. I think you still need a B option. Kawhi would be your A option. Another name on my list, he's a little disgruntled. He won't answer any questions about his situation. Bradley Beal. I've been, campaigning for Bradley Beal to get out of DC for a very long time. So if he's tired, New York is a great place to be, to revive yourself. We got chopped cheese, we got chimis, we got pizza 24 hours a day, Chinese food whenever you want.
Ashley.
We got Hudson Yards. We got everything you could need in New York City. Come over, Bradley. Come over.
That's a hell of a pitch. You're quite convincing. I just wanted to warn you, if your feed all of a sudden drops off, that's because our producer is a diehard Wizards fan. And probably just gagged.
Sorry.
So if for some reason you disappear, you'll know why. That it was not a technical difficulty. Wink, wink. Okay, that's a hell of a pitch though. Bradley Beal. Yeah, he didn't say. You're right. He didn't say he was committed. Yeah.
Right. I hadn't thought of Bradley Beal. I hadn't thought of Kawhi. Those are 2 interesting ones. Tell me what. I got another one though. I got another one for you. I had a big debate with Michael Smith yesterday about this player. I could just see him in New York, and it would make some people uncomfortable, namely Derrick Rose. But how about Dame? Can you see Dame Dame in New York?
I would give up my favorite give up my favorite first cousin for Damian Lillard. I'll tell you that much. Listen, you can, you know what I'm saying? Take my cousin. You want him? Take two if you need him. Like, Dame would be huge. Unfortunately, I don't think that he would listen. I would get a bed at Madison Square Garden because I'm not missing a game if Damian Lillard is out there wearing number 0 in the orange and blue. I'll tell you that much. But I think Dame is the type of person who, one, is going to try to still make the situation in Portland work. I don't see him leaving. I think he's just that guy. It's unfortunate because I think that anywhere else, if you put Damian Lillard in any other equation, he would have won a championship by now, especially if he was on the East Coast. So if he, wants to win some things, he can come on down to NYC. But I don't think that would happen. And if it were in a trade, you would have to give up a lot for Bradley Beal. And I think that would just put him kind of in a situation even worse than he's in now, because you would have less talent that you'd be able to put around him. In order to get him, you got to trade away the house. So free agents are really what you want to go after, which is why I'm so sold on Kawhi Leonard, because he is going to be a free agent. So it's not like you'd have to go ahead, trade the house for him. You have this space, especially depending on how much you're willing to pay Randall. You have a lot of cap room that you can go ahead and put money in that man's pockets without having to get rid of any pieces you don't want to because of the caliber of player you're trying to get.
Yeah, no, and everything you just said about Dame, we were talking about him yesterday and his reputation and legacy, and I think I might have disturbed Nets Hive a little bit, but my point
who cares
with Dame is that he's solid, and that it's almost like in life, right? There's beauty and honor in the struggle. We memorialize and we admire people who do things the hard way, who come out of the mud, so to speak. I'm talking about, I'm strictly just talking about on the court. I'm not talking about anybody's personal life. It's about on the court. And I think Dame, and you said it a second ago, if he were somewhere else, he'd have won a championship by now, which is why I think the lack of a ring is not held against him. And if he were to go, quote unquote, ring chasing, I don't think he needs that. I think, and somebody else made a comparison to me, he's got a lot of Allen Iverson in him. And Iverson went to the finals, and Iverson was an MVP. So he's not Iverson's level per se in terms of accomplishment, and certainly not Kevin Durant's level in terms of accomplishment, just for the record. But Dame has this respect, and as a matter of fact, I just saw this. This speaks to what I'm talking about.
He has barbershop
NBA players, they select barbershop cred. Ashley, thank you.
Yeah.
He's been selected as the Twyman Stokes Teammate of the Year award, based on selfless play, on and off court leadership, and commitment to team. That's voted on by NBA players. So, and there it is right there from Shams. So that's just a little footnote on Dame Lillard and where he is. But Dame in New York, you're right. I would, if you had the plug, if you could find a plug, I would get us both tickets. Michael, you're welcome too, but I would get us both tickets.
I have a plug. I just need Dame. I have a plug. I just don't have Dame.
Gotcha.
But I think also Dame is the type of, and you know what? I think if Dame were to go to New York, hypothetically speaking, I don't even think that would be considered ring chasing, because that's not a solidified thing. It's not like when LeBron went ahead and formulated the big three, or KD went to the Warriors. The Knicks would still be a wild card. So I think that if Dame did go ahead and make that move, it would only add to the level of respect that he gets across the league and from fans of the game, because you went to a franchise that was not guaranteed to win a ring. They definitely have a lot of work to do, and you still brought the city a championship. That would just solidify him even more.
For the first time in forever. For the first time in forever, a legacy franchise and a marquee franchise.
Right.
But he'd be a made man. You're right. He'd be a made man on both coasts.
He'd be a builder
if he did something like that.
He'd be seen as a builder, not even ring chasing. It would be building something that would bring a ring to life.
And I use ring chasing in quotes, by the way. There's nothing wrong with getting better players. However, you got to get them to get a championship. There's nothing wrong with that.
Ashley, can you imagine the team, the leader of the team that leads the Knicks to their first championship since 1973, the year Michael Smith was born? All right, leading a team to a championship. I know. But can you imagine what that celebration would be like in New York, and how that player would be perceived?
Listen, two things. You thought game 2 celebration was lit. The city would be on fire. Like, it would be pandemonium for days. I don't think you understand the level of just chaos that Knicks fans would cause in that city. It'd be trash talking for the next 10 years, maybe even 20. Like, you don't even have to win another championship for 10 years, 20 years if you bring one within the next 5 years in New York. It would be crazy. I mean, it would be just a level of just bragging you have never seen. That is how crazy this fan base is. And the person who is responsible for bringing a championship to New York since the 70s, just be prepared. There will be a statue of you built in front of the Garden, maybe in Central Park. You'll get a couple billboards in Times Square. You'll never have to pay for a meal in New York City for the rest of your life. You will be a god. You will be more than a god. Whatever Zeus is, whatever those, ancient Greek gods are, you would be up there with them. You would be on Mount Olympus with the gods themselves. That is how intense you would be.
I'm going to tell you something. I'm gonna tell you something, and I want to get your take on a quicker take on the playoffs, because we got to talk to you about Naomi Osaka before we hit the top of the hour. But I don't know, Leon Rose or World Wide West or Tom Thibodeau or anybody, we need to get them this tape, because Ashley and Nicole Moss, you'd be a hell of a recruiter. I'm telling you, I don't know how somebody you'd be a secret weapon for the Knicks if they want to get one of these players to come to New York. So, okay, I don't know if the Hawks. Let's talk about the winning team. I don't know if the Hawks earned your respect. Obviously, Joel Embiid is banged up. Oh, my God, look at that face. I don't even want to ask the question now. I was just going to say, look, we got the clash of the Titans, on one side of the bracket with the Nets and the Bucks, and obviously the Hawks going up against the top-seeded Sixers, which maybe that gap is closed, with all due respect to the supporting cast of Philadelphia, which showed out last night against Washington. But maybe, that series looks a little different if Joel Embiid is not at full capacity. How do you see the remainder of the Eastern Conference playoffs playing out? Who's coming out of the East now that your Knicks are not going to get it done?
I still think it's Brooklyn, unfortunately. I just think that Brooklyn was constructed for this very thing. I think that the 76ers Hawks series is going to be a lot more competitive than people give it credit for. The Atlanta Hawks are a good basketball team. I just think that the 76ers are going to edge them out. One, they have more experience. I don't think Embiid is going to be the difference maker. I think that the 76ers can beat the Hawks even without Embiid. Even if they get him towards the middle end of the series, depending on how many games it goes, I still think that they'll be able to edge him out. I have a lot of respect also for Doc Rivers. I think he has the experience there. It won't be because they're a more talented team. It'll just be because they're a more experienced team. I think the Nets are still going to edge out the Bucks. I think the Bucks do have lockdown defense, which is going to be interesting to see what Steve Nash, his scheme looks like to combat that, because the Brooklyn Nets were not constructed to be a defensive powerhouse. They were constructed to, shoot the lights out. And when that clock runs out, the points are in their favor. So it's going to be interesting how they adjust, when the Bucks do lock down some of those names that we're accustomed to seeing put up the big points. Ultimately, though, you look at that series in the regular season, and yes, the regular season no longer matters when the post starts, but you do use it as somewhat of a gauge unless you're the New York Knicks. That's a different conversation. But you look at that series, James Harden wasn't in a game one time. Kyrie Irving wasn't in another game the other time, and the games were extremely close. Now you have all three guys on the court. I just think that the writing's on the wall, and the Nets are going to come out of the East.
It's real professional of you. Speaking of professional, we started the show with an impromptu therapy session, and it dovetailed into an extended conversation about Naomi Osaka and her withdrawing from the French Open after they fined her and threatened her for not participating in post-match press conferences that she was requested for. I'd love to just get your thoughts on not just her situation and the fallout from that, but also the ongoing, evolving, and hopefully maturing conversation around mental health in professional sports.
Well, I think for Naomi, I mean, I remember being 22. It wasn't that long ago, only a few years ago. And it's such a weird age because you're not quite a teenager anymore, but you're not quite a woman. You're still trying to figure out so many things about who you are, how you know, your sexuality and how to carry yourself and just how to be confident. And that's difficult in itself without the extra eyes and being under a microscope and just the constant ridicule and the constant critiques and the constant questions. And I can only sympathize and empathize with her that it is something that weighs on you and it gives you anxiety. And I think that, policies need to change. Mental health is a real thing. I think that people who are vocal about their mental health should be heard, should be listened to. It's the same situation that we had with Meghan Markle, where she's, crying for help. Look, I'm having thoughts. I need help. And I think we need to get rid of this, just outdated mindset
Stigma.
that it's all in your head, the stigma that it's all in your head and you'll get over it, you'll be fine. And this is coming from someone who's half Italian. In that culture, they don't believe in therapy. Old school Italians don't believe in therapy. They don't believe in sharing your feelings. You suck it up, you deal with it, and you keep it pushing. You don't share your emotions. And that's not a healthy way to be, because all it does is it builds up. And, I don't know what it's like to be a huge tennis star and a multi-millionaire at 22 years old, but I can even just speak for myself. As my career has continued to evolve and to grow, it's very difficult to navigate, especially with social media, where people feel like now they can attack you from the safety of behind a computer screen. Guys and girls who wouldn't bust a grape in a fruit fight, now feel like they can talk to you any type of way and they can just be crazy and reckless. But if they saw you in the street, the girls would go the other direction and the guys would probably try to get my phone number. But behind a computer screen, you're big and bad. And even the toughest of people, I'm a New Yorker and I was raised to have tough skin, and it weighs on you eventually, and it gets you to question your worth, and it gets you to question, are you even good at your job? Why do so many people hate your takes, and why do so many people hold, the fact that a rumor that you reported didn't come true? Why are they holding that against you? And why does this fan base hate you? And it's just so many different things. And then as a woman, you're critiqued on how you look, how you dress, how you speak. You can't sit next to a certain athlete because then you're sleeping with him. Oh, you got that interview because you're sleeping. It's so many different things that weigh on you, and it weighs on you spiritually, and it weighs on you mentally, and it can really put you in a dark place if you let it. And it's definitely happened to me a few times, especially as my career continues to grow and continues to be seen by more people. It just lets more people in close enough to kind of affect you in that way.
Wow.
That's
so interesting, Ashley, the way you really outlined that very clearly, and I felt it. I'm wondering, this came to me, like listening to you describe it. Do you think with a lot of athletes, male or female, a lot of athletes are always told, hey, you got to get a good financial advisor. Make sure you have somebody who's looking out for your money, or hey, this is how you handle yourself in the media. Do you think it's just, especially if you're going to be so public in your life, do you think a good advice for any athlete is to make sure, just be proactive and have a therapist? Like that,
Yeah.
That is just anticipate that there are going to be things that you're going through that you need to talk to. You have to talk to somebody about it, not just a mentor. So get a mentor, get a therapist. Maybe that's something we all need to hear. I would take that advice. That's good advice from me.
Absolutely. I was talking to Michael about this last night. I was saying Twitter is starting to really weigh on my mental health. Like it's making me question, am I even good at my job? Like, why do so many people hate my takes? I spoke about the Brad Stevens promotion, and, I said that he failed at his job and still got a promotion, and the amount of hate that I got from so many different people on Twitter, where there were men on my timeline saying the exact same thing and people were agreeing with them, makes you question, well, maybe people just don't like me. Maybe that's, why I constantly get attacked. It makes you feel like you can't even breathe without somebody taking offense to it, and it weighs on you spiritually. But I completely agree, have somebody in your life, whether it's a mentor, whether it's a therapist, or, you know, a close friend, somebody who you can kind of let your guard down and not have to be tough with. And I was speaking to a friend of mine earlier today, and I was saying, you know, sometimes I feel like me not being the tough one, you know, not being the one who has it together, because, you know, whether or not I'm feeling my best, I still have to go to work. You know, it's hard to kind of shut that off. You know, it's hard to kind of pick somebody and have somebody in your life or feel like you can be vulnerable with someone and kind of let those guards down without feeling like you're a burden. And I think that so many people who have the responsibility of being in charge of their business, being in charge of their brand, being in charge of what they do on the court or on the field, feel like, well, if I'm not okay, everything around me falls apart, and that's not okay. So I have to be the one to suck it up and deal with it because I don't have the luxury of not being okay. And that's such a damaging mindset. And I have that mindset. Like, I don't have the luxury of not being okay, because who's going to do this if I'm not okay? But that's not the best way to be, because all you do is compartmentalize and you hold things in, and then eventually it just overtakes you and you fall into a depression, you fall into a dark place, and you fall into a mindset where you're thinking of all these crazy things and scenarios, and just so many dark thoughts will cross your mind, that you have to be okay with not being okay and have to be okay with having that conversation with somebody.
Awesome.
That's quite a few words, and you know, like I told you last night. I mean, and I appreciate that you not only shared your feelings with me and are comfortable sharing it with me, but you shared them with us and the audience right now, Ashley, because there's so much. I didn't tell you this last night, but there's so much strength in you vocalizing that. Because just like I told Michael off the top, Michael was about to talk about Luka Doncic, and Michael talked about he was done keeping score, done holding grudges, and forgiveness. And that gave me license to get into my struggles. I was minutes away from saying, like, yo, I ain't got it today and I don't feel like it today. Talking about this. And this is not a hard job, relatively speaking. And I often feel guilty even complaining about it. But it's like, I was so close to not doing it. So he gave me that license today to express how I was feeling. And I want to thank you, because last night, you sharing that with me and then, you know, expounding upon it just now, I told you, this is what I told you last night, was like, I'm 20 plus years in this game, and I have those same feelings that you have. Certainly I've never experienced it from the perspective of a woman, and I wouldn't dare compare and minimize or trivialize your experiences by comparing it to mine, but I'm saying those same vulnerabilities or insecurities or thoughts or thing, I still get that. You know what I mean? And so I'll speak for Michael. You're incredible. And if nobody else, and I know it's a lot more people, but just know, if nobody else, you have huge fans on this here screen next to you right now. And the reason you're rising is because you're great and you deserve it. And you've earned it, and you've hustled and you've grinded, and the sky's the limit. So, you know, if they responding, that means they're paying attention. That's how I try to. So they listen to what you're saying, you know. So Ashley,
and I
Nicole
think
Moss, appreciate it. Go ahead, bro.
Well, one more thing I just want to say, because I feel like it's important to say this, because I think people have a different perception. I think social media is a huge part in that. I think there are a lot of women who look at other women who they think have it all. You know, you're pretty and you're this and you're on TV and you're doing this. You know, what could possibly be wrong with you? Like, you don't have any problems. And I think it's important for everyone to be honest. And to be vulnerable and to let people know, like, yeah, this looks all put together on the outside, but on the inside, I struggle too. And anybody who you think has it all together, regardless of, you know, what they have in the bank account, what they drive, what they do for a living, how they look, how they dress, everybody is dealing with something at some point in their life. So don't allow, you know, the outside package to dictate what could be going on the inside, because I'm no different than anybody else walking this earth who deals with issues. So I think that's another reason why it's so important to be honest. Like, look, I'm real too. And regardless of what you think, you know, perfections I have in my life, I don't have them. So I think it's important that we all kind of be honest people, so that that stigma of saying you're not okay is kind of pushed to the side, because we don't feel like there's a hierarchy of who's who and who has what, and that dictating whether or not it's okay to not be okay.
That's good stuff.
Yo, you stay ready so you ain't got to get ready. I hit you up like right before the show. I'm like, can you drop through? I'm so glad you came through. Thank you.
Me too.
For your entertaining commentary and your inspiring wisdom. when it comes to this
Thank
issue.
you.
And she's
Thank you so
repping
much.
Knicks blue today. Got
Well,
the
you
Knicks
know.
blue on. I noticed that.
Always.
You know, don't back down.
I
Don't
told
back
you,
down.
they're better
I mean,
when
it
they
was-
lose. That's
It
when
was
they
4
show their
games
We
true
here.
colors. Like you really know who's down. Yeah.
I thought I'd get, hey, Ashley, I thought it'd be an extra game or two. Like 5 games. I feel a little
I
cheated
know.
here. I feel a little cheated.
I'm sorry. I gotta
Yeah,
talk
I
to
know.
Tibbs. We gotta get our defensive rotations in sync because I'm not feeling what's going on. I got you.
All right, we'll
All right,
talk to you later.
Ashley.
Be good.
Thank you.
Bye, guys.